What if everything you have deemed as impossible really was possible? What have you known and believed was possible your whole life? You just didn't know how to actualize it. Come and discover a world of infinite possibilities on Outside the Impossible with Venus Castleberg. On this show, we will share pragmatic tools to create the life and living you truly desire. And now, your host, Venus Castleberg.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm here with Viv Adcock, and we're talking about out-creating under-earning. I am super excited to have you, Viv, on the show. I was looking over your bio, and I was like, wow, we actually are very similar. We have some very similar backgrounds. I have 20 years of alternative healthcares as well, different modalities. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your discovery of access consciousness and your journey to that?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show, Venus. I've been excited all week. Yeah, I think like a lot of people, I got into the health industry and the wellness industry through my own personal journey. You know, I was really sick with some weird disease that nobody could help me with, which led me to a lot of alternative therapies, including homeopathy and, massage and meditation and the usual track that a lot of people travel on. And I eventually discovered kinesiology, muscle testing. And through that, I kind of tapped into some kind of knowing. And as the kinesiologist was working with me, I would tell him what my body was about to say. And he's like, well, how do you know that? And I went, well, I don't really know how I know that, but I just know what my body's about to tell you. So that got me really curious as to the information, the awareness that our body is giving us through, so-called diseases or problems or symptoms. And I learned kinesiology and then set up a very successful business here in Noosa on the Sunshine Coast in Australia. And from there, I spent probably about 8 years loving kinesiology, and I got to a point where I just went, I'm overlooking at my issues. When do I get the good stuff? When do I get my dessert? When do I get the fun and my, the reward? So I was so convinced I had money problems and that I was useless with money, and, I earned really good money and then I never had anything to show for it. So a friend of mine introduced me to a book called Money Isn't the Problem, You Are, written by Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness. And that was the catalyst 13 years ago that introduced me to a whole different way to be as a person, to be as a being, to interact with everything and everyone around you, and be with money, basically. So that was the beginning.
Awesome. It's always funny to hear our stories about how we found access, but a lot of us, I'd say, were probably seekers in some way, like you said, always looking for something. When you did discover access consciousness, and I named this radio show Outside the Impossible because I really believe everything is possible. And it's always fun to ask people, so what was at least one thing that you changed that you thought was impossible to change that you changed with the access tools?
Well, the biggest crime, so to speak, that I thought I had prior to discovering the tools was, I was always wrong. Whatever was going on in my life, it was my fault, or I was to blame, or it was something that I wasn't being, or I wasn't good enough, that it was like the Grim Reaper would follow me around with everything. It was this, I'm not good enough. It's because I'm not trying hard enough. It's because I don't deserve it. And that was something that just plagued me no matter what I did. It was always this voice at the bottom of everything that just was eroding me and eroding my being and my capacity to create. So in the book, one of the first questions Gary asks is, well, what's right about me that I'm not getting? And I'm like, but there isn't anything right about me, because all I'd done was spent 42 years looking at the wrongness of me. So it completely spun my head around. And it just threw a different light into, wow, I've never looked at that perspective before. I've never looked at, what is right about me, or what's right about this, whatever the situation that I was judging myself for, what's right about this. And that opened a whole new universe, a whole new solar system to play with.
Beautiful. Yeah. So we named this this episode, Out Creating Under Earning. Would you tell us a little bit about what that is for you?
Yeah, so I also came across a term, self-debting. And I went, oh, I wonder what that means, self-debting. And it got me to look at how I would always make sure everything else was paid first, everybody else was paid, everybody else was looked after, all of their emotional needs were met. And I was always, getting the scraps. And I stood there one day and had a little tantrum, and we have a saying in Australia where we throw our toys out of the pram. It was like I had this tantrum and said, what about me? It's like I'm working, I've studied, I'm generous, I contribute, and then I'd have this little tantrum about, well, what about me? And that got me to look at, okay, where am I undervaluing myself? Where am I undervaluing the quality of my life, the choices that I make, how I treat myself? And it could come down to something simple as, putting an extra client in for the day because they were desperate even though I was exhausted. It was just everywhere I started to look, I could see that I was shortchanging myself. I was debting to myself and making sure everybody else's needs and requires and wants and demands were met at my expense. And I looked at, wow, I wonder if that's got a correlation to my finances. So after a while, I realized these guys go hand in hand. They play quite merrily together.
So how great, and how would you say that you even like that whole concept, like people are like, okay, wait, I'm already under earning and I have to outcreate this, but most people go to, that means I have to work harder, I have to do more. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely, which I did for many years. It was just this train track of, okay, well, it's because I'm not working hard enough. Okay, well, I'll put an extra day on in clinic and I'll see more clients, even though I was physically and mentally exhausted. It was like, well, I was constantly chasing the dollar to make ends meet, and living week to week, which I think a lot of people relate to. And so I just got to the breaking point where I knew if I kept going, I would create more sickness and more disease in my body, which would then stop the inflow of money altogether. So I knew I had to make a total track change. I had to make a totally different trajectory in regards to, look, if you're doing the same thing over and over and it's not changing, then maybe you could look at something different. So then I started looking at, right, well, let's acknowledge what I have created. Let's acknowledge, wow, I actually am busy. My clinic is thriving. I am having referrals. I'm obviously doing something right there. So what's right about this? I started to acknowledge, hang on, let's look at the things that are working rather than making the things that aren't working more valuable. And I think the mind can play such wicked tricks with you to constantly get you to chase after what you don't have and what you haven't got, and make that much more valuable than actually acknowledging what you do have right here, right now. So I started acknowledging, wow, I've got a great business. I've got really amazing clients. I love what I do. I'm earning really good money. Okay, so that side's working really well. Where's the gap? Where's the hole? What can I change here? And then I started to become aware of thought patterns and the ways I was behaving with money and how I was treating it. And I was, just not really caring for the money that I was earning. So I then started to become aware of, right, well, maybe I can make different choices. But to back up, I had to first acknowledge, okay, yeah, this is working. This is actually creating what I desire. I just have to look at the gap. What is that where it's not working? And I started to use the question, okay, what's right about this that I'm not getting? What else is possible here that I haven't yet considered? And it's that question that suddenly it just literally throws your head into a different perspective, and you start looking through a different lens at, where you're functioning. And yeah, you have to have a level of honesty with yourself and vulnerability and kindness when you step into an arena where something's not working, to be really gentle and not judge the daylights out of yourself, which is what I'd spent the best part of 40 years doing. So it was to turn my head around and just look from a different perspective, and then to out-create. It was like, okay, there's something greater possible here. I don't know what that is yet, but I had that sense that, look, something can change here. I might not know what that is just yet, but I'm making steps to change it. And the awareness was then the acknowledgement first, and then the awareness, and then the gentleness as I went through that process, then allowed me to start asking the questions, and different things just started to show up.
Like what?
Well, one of the gifts in that How to Become Money workbook is, there's another one, not How to Become Money workbook, the money isn't the problem, you are, is take 10% of everything you earn and put it away for you. It's an honoring of you account. And this is the thing, the missing gap for me was I wasn't honoring me with the money I'd earned and created. I was honoring everybody else. I was paying my bills. I was paying my mortgage. I was looking after that side of things, but there was nothing left for Viv at the end of the day. So I went, my God, how am I going to manage to take 10% out of this? So I went, right, okay, I'm going to commit to making 5%. 10% was too much of a stretch to me to start with. So I started weekly putting away 5%. And the strangest thing happened. More money started to come in. I sold more products. I had another revenue stream, an idea came in, and then money started to flow in through that revenue stream. And before, I think it was probably about 2 months, I started putting 10% away. And just seeing that Viv Adcock account, the honoring of me, to see that account build up week after week, and it was like building a muscle where I was including me in my financial reality. I was including me in my life, and I was starting to be able to make different choices, and instead of overstretching myself, I was okay to say, look, no, that doesn't work this week, but can I book you in next week? And I was starting to make these changes and choices that then built a whole new neural pathway, if you like, a whole new muscle to include Viv in her reality.
Well, I know you're saying that you put yourself first, or that's what you started to change. So I know most people out there are going, wait a minute. Like, aren't we supposed to pay our bills first? Isn't that,
yes.
What's the right way to do it?
Yes. Yeah. And yes, because, for me it was, I am a huge carer of people, and, my priorities and making sure that the people who've supported me are looked after and blah, blah, blah. And I had that awareness of, right, okay, I've always self-debted. I've always put myself last in every situation. And it was something simple like I'd have friends over for dinner, and I'd make sure they were all looked after and they had a really good meal and they had their wine, and I'd sit down and I'd recognize that I put a smaller portion on my plate, or, I'd have less wine, and it was just this constant recognition everywhere I looked of, wow, I'm leaving myself out. I'd make sure everybody else was comfortable. So it is a really big turning point for people to recognize, how am I treating myself? And then I'd get upset if people treated me with dishonor, or they didn't include me, or they overlooked me. And I'm like, hang on, this is how I'm treating myself. And it was a real slap in the face to realize, wow, we teach people how to treat us by how we treat ourselves. And so that I went, okay, I'm not happy with how this person's treating me. Where am I doing that to myself? So instead of reacting to that person and making them wrong and getting all fiery and pointing the guns at them, I then went, okay, where am I treating myself like this? Where do I think that that's okay? So it is, it was, okay, I need to turn this around and be really gentle and honest with myself to look at, how am I treating myself that I'm not even aware of? Where am I leaving myself out? Where am I excluding myself? And one of the very first questions Gary Douglas ever gave me was, what if you could have an inclusive reality that includes you? Because I think a lot of us think, well, in order to include us, we have to be selfish or self-centered, or we have to have a tantrum, or no, when you have an inclusive reality, you choose from a place of honor that still includes the people around you that you care for. It still includes honoring your bills and paying your expenses, but not at the exclusion of you, and not the other way around, whereas if, right, well, I'm including me and, I'm going to exclude everyone else. It's a very different way to be, and it's a very unusual place to function from the kingdom of we, where you make a choice for you that is truly honoring and kind, but it includes the people around you.
So it's not like somebody has to go without. It's not like if you're choosing for you, now nobody else gets taken care of either, and vice versa. It's like...
And thank you, Venus, because that brings up another point, because we have been permeated with this belief in lack, that there isn't enough, I haven't got enough time, or I haven't got enough energy, or I haven't got enough money, or I haven't got, fill in the blank, whatever that is for you. I don't have enough space. We've been fed, and we believe, and we live with this reality of lack. So in order for me to put that 5% away, first of all, I wrestled in my own mind as to, well, how do I still honor my commitments? How do I still make that work? And just the fact that I was asking that question, I was actually considering me and including me, more money started to show up in the most amazing, mind-blowing, miraculous ways, where it's like, wow, I do have extra this week. I can include them and I can include myself. So, this belief in lack is that there's not enough to go around. And if you have that point of view, which is where I was functioning from very well, very, very successfully, I constantly perpetrated that because I believed in lack. It was constantly showing up in my world. So when you look at that as well, it's like the universe doesn't lack. The birds don't lack feathers, the tree doesn't lack berries or fruit on the tree, but somewhere we've disconnected from that state of prosperity and what we can create. So when you recognize out-creating is looking at, well, what else could I create that includes me?
Well, I love that question, and we will talk a little bit more about that just after this break. If you have questions for Viv, you can call 202-570-7057, and we'll be right back.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Connect at omtimes.com. OMTimes, creating a more conscious lifestyle.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Is it time to create a different and greater world? Through research, we can explore paths to new and exciting possibilities. The Hope Foundation for Possibilities and Change is a research-based, not-for-profit organization dedicated to exploring, discovering, and creating a different future for all. Your donations make this happen. You can contribute at foundationforpossibilities.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm here with Viv Adcock, and we're talking about out-creating under-earning. Right before the break, you said actually a couple of different things, and I'd love to touch on if you could talk a little bit more about what is prosperity consciousness versus lack consciousness.
Great question, Venus. Prosperity consciousness. So prosperity isn't a word that's used much these days, so it's almost like an old-fashioned term, but for me, prosperity is having wealth in everything, wealth in how you live, wealth in how you treat yourself, and prosperity is looking at the world through the lenses of, wow, everything is a possibility. There's a richness, there's a wealth that you can tap into and create. And it's a consciousness, so you cultivate a way of being, you cultivate a way of engaging with life. So when so-called problems turn up, you've got a bill that's come in that's bigger than you thought, or you've got financial things backing up. When you have prosperity consciousness, you're always looking at, right, what's possible here? How do I generate this money? How else can this show up? What else is possible with my finances I haven't touched on before? And instead of going to the lack mentality, depending on what you've grown up with and your background and your social environment, it can be this, I don't have enough money. I've never got enough to make ends meet. Money comes in, money goes out. It's in one hand, out the other. So it's looking at your points of view again and recognizing, okay, am I coming from lack and limitation and not enough? Has that been permeated into my world, into my consciousness and my being? So then you're constantly creating this, whether you're aware of it or not, consciously or unconsciously, and then crossing that bridge or making the choice to develop a sense of prosperity where you can be grateful for the smallest of things. Somebody buys you a coffee. You have money in the bank, you have money in your wallet, you have, a beautiful home to come home to, you have great people in your life that are generous and kind. So it's starting to look at what is a level of abundance and wealth and prosperity in your world and looking at how that can become greater. Because the moment you acknowledge, this is the thing I was talking about before the break, when you acknowledge what is, when you acknowledge what you already have and you're grateful for it, and you ask for that to expand or become more, there's an energy that gets generated that starts opening the doors to other possibilities that are beyond that lack.
Wow, that's really amazingly put. And I really would love for you to elaborate a little bit more on that, like asking what else is possible.
Yeah, so, I can use an example in my own life. I'd literally got to the age of 42 and I had $42 in savings. I went, wow, that's $1 for every year of my life. I'd lived, I'd traveled, I'd had a great life, and then I got to the age of 42 and went, okay, something's not working here for me. And at that point, I didn't realize, but I'd made a choice to actually have money instead of living with this angst of week to week and that fear of, oh my God, what if the car breaks down, and what if something goes wrong with the fridge or the washing machine, or, money is required as an outlay. So when I started to have this awareness of, okay, what else is possible that I haven't considered yet? It started to stretch me into my creative capacities that had been long dormant. Because when you've been so on the train track and so in that rhythm of, I don't have enough and I'm scared I won't have enough, and what if I run out of money, and what if a big bill comes in? You're on this train track with these, blinkers on, these blinders on that are stopping you seeing what else is available. There are lots of other tracks to follow. There are lots of other doors to open. There are lots of other possibilities that when we start to ask a question, we create a vibrational shift in our world. We're willing to open our eyes and our mind and our awareness to other possibilities that are existing, but we haven't been able to see them because of that conditioning and that lack and the, like I say, the blinkers or the blinders like a racehorse wears. It stops you seeing something outside of that. So, your entire show, Venus, is about, right, what is possible beyond this, whatever this is for that person.
Yeah, and I wonder too if, what is it that you sound to me like, and from what I've learned about you, that you're an adventure person. You're an adventure seeker. You're, like you said, you've traveled the world. And there's a lot of people that actually won't even leave their house or haven't left the town that they grew up in. So if somebody is saying, okay, I don't even know where to begin, like, I want to change this. I know you're saying, ask some questions, but what could be like maybe one or two things that you just suggest, like somebody going, okay, where do they start?
Yeah, great question. So what would be the one thing in your life you would truly desire to have if money wasn't the issue? Would it be to upgrade your car? Would it be to have a holiday to Hawaii? Would it be to... It's a question that you're stretching yourself, but when your mind has already said it's never going to happen, or I'll never afford it, or I can't, the moment you say I can't, you shut the doors to those possibilities opening. So what's the one thing in your life right now that you would truly desire to have? And it could be something as simple as, I really need a new washing machine. It could be something really simple like, I just would like to take my kids on a weekend holiday. But if you start to stretch and look beyond the I can'ts and I don't have the money and I can't afford it, you allow yourself to have the dream, if you like. You allow yourself to tap into that energy of the universe desires to contribute to us. It desires to have a happy life. It desires us to have what we would like to have, and for our children and our families. But if you're the creator and you've accidentally put the lid on yourself, or you've bought into the lies of lack, rather than, wow, what if? What if this could actually happen? What if this could be a reality for me? What if I could take the kids away for the weekend? And look at what you desire, one thing, and start asking, what will it take for this to show up with ease? And don't try and work it out. Don't try and work out how you're going to do it. Just ask the question and let it go. It's like you're blowing the dandelion. When we were kids, we used to blow the dandelion and make a wish, and the seeds would scatter off, and you wouldn't think about those seeds ever again. Well, what if asking the question could be as simple as this, and you started to create with that desire?
Wonderful. And let's say you're also somebody, though, that you have that negative self-talk. Like, there's definitely something in your brain that says I can't. How would you change that? I mean, because sometimes that's just even automatic. It just shows up.
Yeah, that voice in the back of our head that's standing over us, like I mentioned earlier, everywhere I went, it was like I had this grim reaper over my shoulder saying, you're not good enough and you'll never have. And so, yeah, I think we all, if we're willing to admit it, a lot of us have those voices. A lot of people have those voices, that the argument that goes to and fro. So if that voice comes up, it's like, well, what if I could? It's almost as if you're having a dialogue with yourself, but instead of just taking that no for an answer, instead of having that door shut on your fingers when you start to hope and dream and desire, instead of that voice coming in and, smacking you across the back of the wrists, what if you could just counteract it with, well, what if I could? What if it was possible? And just something else I wanted to add too, it's like when we ask that question and we tap into that childlike wonderment, because when we're a child, we don't have any lack, we don't have any need, we don't have any I can'ts. You say no to a child and they say, why? They don't get it. It's like, what do you mean I can't have it? Because in their world, they haven't yet learned, no, everything is possible to a child. But, life is this magical wonderland of, wow, what's this doing? What else is out there? And how's this work? And they're in the question the whole time. They're curious. So if you could tap into that childlike wonderment of Christmas morning, if you used to love Christmas, or your birthday, or going on an Easter egg hunt, or, just looking in awe at a flower, or touching an animal for the first time, there's that absolute wonderment of life. And if you tap into that energy when you ask the question, it's the energy that actually creates the catalyst for whatever your desire is. Because if we're going to start asking for something from need or lack, that energy of need, if somebody's needy of you, it's not a very attractive energy. You want to retract from that energy. But if somebody comes up and goes, can I have a hug? A little kid comes up with those big eyes and they just go, can I have a cuddle? It's like, it just melts everything. And you say yes. But if they come up needy and whining and crying and pulling on you, on your skirt or your trousers, it's like, oh, okay, I'll pick the kid up, or I'll give that child some energy, but it's kind of from that place of resistance. So if you tap into that childlike wonderment and just play, what's the best that can happen? You know, if you ask a question from that place of curiosity, what's the best that can happen? It shows up.
That's great. And would you say a little bit more though about the asking from the wonder versus the need? Because a lot of people, I'm sure, are like, well, but wait a minute, there's no money in my bank account. You know, I need money. So
yes,
how do I not ask from need if I need money?
Yeah, yeah. And this was, to be totally honest with you, this was probably one of the most worked muscle I had to just constantly remind myself of, because it had been such an ingrained pattern for so long, living week to week and struggling and never having money. Or the thing was, I'd always create, if I needed to go to the UK from Australia, I would always create the exact amount of money to cover the airfare. But there was never any surplus. This was the other thing that I became aware of. So for me at the beginning, it was just, okay, I have to be vigilant with every time I go to, I can't afford it, because that would come out of my mouth and it would be my first thought every time somebody said, oh, would you like to come out for dinner on Friday night? I'd go immediately to my bank account or, you know, the money. So in regards to need, there's a demand that I made of myself. Look, I'm done living with $42 in the bank. I'm done with this struggle. I'm done with not allowing myself to have what I truly desire and constantly living in that. It was like an anguish of desiring more but not allowing myself to have it. And then realizing, hang on, I am the creator. I've created some really good stuff. Acknowledge the creation. And then anytime I went to need, I would remind myself, hey, look at what you've already created, Viv. So anytime I went to need, I'd also go, okay, what else is possible beyond this? What if I could? What if this was possible? So every time that need came up, because it's like a twist in your stomach, it's like a contraction of your being. You're reaching for something, but then that voice comes in and your being contracts and you get stuck, rather than what if I expand into, you know, imagine, this might sound a bit strange, but imagine inhaling the smell of a rose or a beautiful flower right now. It's like, oh, yum. It nourishes every molecule of your being. It activates something in you. And yet the rose is just growing there in the garden. It's not costing you anything to smell the rose. So there's a level of desire when you inhale that smell. There's like, oh, yum, that's beautiful. It nourishes me. So I don't know if that answers your question, Venus, but it's, you know, to engage with it in a very different energetic way, not just from this mental construct of I don't have, I can't afford it, I'm never going to have, I'm going to perpetrate lack, to hang on, what if I could? What if I could draw to me? What if I could inhale, you know, the desire? What if I could activate that desire that I would like to have something, I would love to have something? That's a very different energy from need and lack.
Right. And, you know, it's, you don't then approach things as like, I have to, you know, staunch the bleeding by going and getting another job, you know.
Yes.
So, and you did touch on this before, and I would love for you to elaborate a little bit more about it. Like you said that you actually, when you started honoring you were putting money away, but you also said no to appointments and put them off to another day. And
yeah,
say more about that? Yeah.
And for somebody that's a self-debtor, for somebody that always pays everybody else first and puts everybody else first, again, I'm going to be totally honest and vulnerable here. It was excruciating to say no to people. It was one of the most difficult bridges for me to say no, because it felt mean. It felt like I was, you know, being unkind, or I wasn't being caring. And when I actually realized, no, this is what's perpetrating this lack and this self-debting and this poverty mentality, where I wasn't being kind to myself, I wasn't being kind to my body. to say no. And what I learned to say, how I navigated that was, you know what, that doesn't work for me at the moment. What else is possible? Because saying no was just like, ugh, my whole world would contract. It was like I was swearing at somebody or, being really unkind. So if somebody said, hey, look, I'm desperate for a session, can you fit me in on Friday or can you do Saturday? Because I was always, taking appointments when I wasn't working because I didn't know how to say no. And it was just, you know what, that doesn't work for me. But what else is possible? Says, I'm hearing you. I want to include you. I want to accommodate you. Can we work something out together? And they were like, okay, great. Well, what about Monday? Can you do Monday? And I'm like, yes, that's great. Mm-hmm. So, that whole thing of just, it's making the gentle transition for yourself, to be kind to yourself, to know that, look, if you've always said yes to people, if you've always been a self-debtor, it may take a while to get that muscle strong, and you might still say yes when you want to say no, but you'll be aware of when you've said it. And next time it'll be, okay, that doesn't work for me, but what else is possible? That doesn't work for me means, hey, look, I'm thinking of me and I'm considering how this will impact on me. And what else is possible means, can we negotiate? Can I still include you? I'm still hearing you, and let's come to some agreement that honors both of us.
Oh, great. So you get to honor you and honor others inside of that. It's not about cutting them off. Great. Well, we'll talk more about that on the other side of this break. If you have questions for Viv, please call 202-570-7057, and we'll be right back.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
I'm Kathy Williams, host of Sexy Mom Abundant Life radio show on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. On the show, we explore living abundantly in every area of your life. Ways to let go of limiting patterns and beliefs and to step into the flow of creativity and possibility, knowing you are supported by the universe.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
Hello and welcome back. I'm here with Viv Adcock, and we're talking about out-creating under-earning. And right before the break, Viv, you said something. You were talking about like how you would tell people no because you couldn't say no to begin with, which is awesome. I love that. And I'm curious though, because I kind of understand the it's the weekend and you've said the weekend is your time. Great. What about those times when somebody asks you for something and you're like, it just doesn't feel right? There's something, and you're like, but I can fit them in, and it's totally the right time. What would you do with something like that?
Yeah, I've learned also over the time to you tune into your body, you tune into a sense of your well-being, and this again is another level of prosperity. It's like you tune into what feels good for your body? What is this space of lightness and nourishment and nurturing? And as a self-debtor, what I was doing was not having any connection to that and saying yes to everything, and then wondering why my body was breaking down, or I was exhausted, and then I'd get cranky. So if somebody was to invite me to something on the weekend and I kind of felt a bit obligated, or I felt like I had to, you know that immediately. It's like you say yes. The moment the word comes out of your mouth, you feel this sinking feeling. You feel this, contraction in your muscles, and you have this sense of heaviness. And it's like, okay, look, can I get back to you about that? Saying to them, can I get back to you? Or just buying yourself a little bit of time while you're learning to flex this muscle of, yep, that's great. That feels really light. Yep, okay, I can do Saturday. Because for me, there's no hard and fast rules. It's like, I don't work Saturdays. There are times when people drive an hour and a half and they just happen to be in town. And it's like, hey, I just thought I'd call you on the off chance. If it's really light, I'll follow that energy. If it feels really light and expansive when they say, I'd love a session with you, or can we call in for a cup of tea, or are you free for dinner? There's a sense of lightness. It's like, okay, I sit with that for a moment, literally 1 or 2 moments, and just, that's really light. I've learned to check in with my body and go, okay, body, if we choose this, how will that be? If it's light, great, let's go for it. And if I choose this, if it's heavy, it's like, can I get back to you? Or what else is possible? I will find a way to negotiate without them feeling that they're not being included or they're not being, engaged with. I'm still being kind and caring to their world, but having that little bit more awareness for myself and my choice. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. It's funny, this morning my daughter actually came to me and she was like, so I asked the question and my whole world lit up, except for there was like this dropping ball that felt like a little bit of heaviness. So she had a conflicting awareness around that. What sort of questions would you ask inside of that?
Yeah, and that's a great description. It's like, we have that immediate connection to, like I say, the word comes out of our mouth and it's like, uh-oh, what have I just done? Because your body will give you that feedback immediately. And what if you could have that connection with your body where you have that space, just like I said, that nanosecond or that moment to just check in. Okay, if I choose this. So, with that sinking feeling, what if I could choose what honors me? So to honor means to regard, to treat you with regard and treat the other person with regard. And again, this is another word, honor and regard, are not words that are used these days because we're almost taught to give up on ourselves and accommodate everybody else. So how old's your daughter, Venus?
18.
So great to grow up with that level of awareness. To have that.
Okay, great. Cool. Joseph, we can dive right in. Welcome.
Cool. Hey, Viv. How are you today?
Hey, Joseph. I'm great. How are you?
I am amazing. The conversation, so self-debtor, when you use that word, it hit me that I have done that in different ways pretty much my whole life of, putting everyone else's needs first. Kids' needs, mom's needs, dad's needs, spouse's needs, siblings' needs, whatever, even at work. And I realized, and maybe just give a little bit of advice here, is that I've found over the years that in my job, in my company, I've hit this ceiling of like make money and then back off, or make money and then find this comfortable spot, and almost it's like I almost self-debt enough to create a hole or create a problem, or try to basically self-destruct certain areas of my life. Can you talk about that and ways to not have that happen or to get away from that? Because, the good news is that I've actually, in the last probably 90 days, I've definitely turned a corner. and I'm going in a direction now to where I am out creating things that I've done in the past. I've been doing things that are working out just fine, but I just wanted to get a little bit of help there.
Yeah, that's great. And like I said earlier, Joseph, when you acknowledge the changes that you've made, it becomes a lot more easier, because it's like, oh yes, look, I'm having time for myself. I'm going to the baseball, or I've caught up with my guys for a game of pool, or you've created some time and space for yourself. So if there's been this kind of all or nothing, or feast or famine, or you work really hard and do well, and then maybe you crash and burn, or because what we do with our energy is we give everything we've got, and then there's this elastic band that gets pulled to the extreme where we're giving and giving and giving and doing and working. And then, like I said, with my journey, it was my body just went, okay, enough. And then I would retract and everything would fall in a hole. And so it became this cycle, which is what you're describing. So number one, please acknowledge more when you're having time for yourself or you're making choices. Okay, yes, more of this, please. Well done, Joseph. Pat yourself on the back. And I know that might sound a bit, weird, but it's just, yes, acknowledge what you're creating. And then, okay, what will it take to create more by being more and doing less? So this can be a bit of a mind bender, because we actually create more by being more, not doing more. And I think this is, again, that trap of lack, where we believe that if we do, we'll have more. And you've realized, no, there's only so far that elastic band can stretch. So, a question for you to play with would be, okay, so what can I be that I've never been willing to be before that will generate more? And I know that might not make cognitive sense, but can you get the sense of what I'm saying?
I am. Just as you're talking, my body is tingling. I got all lit up by that, because yes, there have been. I've found like the limit of time and everything else that I can do for me personally, and then I get bored, because I'm like, well, this is all I could do. This is bullshit. This is
yeah.
Why am I trying so damn hard? And what you're talking about. And so being more, can you talk more about what more can I be here?
Yeah, great. So give me something that you love to do as a leisure activity. What is it that really lights you up?
I love to ski.
Okay, great. So right now, if you tap into the energy of skiing, you have infinite energy. Time stands still. There are no problems. You're in this space of totally intensely being present with everything around you. You're with your body, you're with the environment, and you're alive. You're fully alive. You're engaging with life. You're receiving. So in order to, to take that energy into, okay, well, not that you have to go skiing every day. What would it take? But it's to harness that energy and go, okay, what more can I add to my life that will actualize this energy? So the energy of that aliveness and being present, receiving everything, being with your body, receiving your environment. So what more can I add to my life that will actualize more of this energy? So, and this is just something I wanted to touch on too. When we feel like we're overloaded, like, oh my God, I can't take anything else on. And you mentioned it earlier, Joseph, it's like I get bored. Yes, we get bored when we don't have enough going on. And I know this might sound a bit crazy and a bit, back to front, but when you get bored, it's because you don't have enough going on. But it's not that you're not busy doing, it's that your body is craving a new energy. It's craving a new way of being. It's craving a new way of having access to that energy, that aliveness where you're engaging. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, it does. Thank you. That is it's awesome. I appreciate you. I appreciate you being on Venus' show today, and I really look forward to coming back and listening to this one 3, 4, 5 dozen times.
Great. Thank you for calling in, Joseph. I'm grateful for your contribution too. Keep being you.
I will. Thank you, Viv.
Yeah. That was
Bye.
Joseph. Thank you. Bye-bye. That was really great, and I would love for you to even elaborate on it, because what you're saying too is that, being more of you and not doing as much doesn't mean you're necessarily sitting at home, sitting on your couch, waiting for things to happen either.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, maybe for the listeners, they could sense, when he taps into skiing or whatever it is for you that you love to do, when you allow yourself to have more time to ski, for instance, or you give yourself, this is where you generate that muscle of prosperity. And as weird as it sounds, you're allowing yourself to, go skiing, walk with the dog, roll on the floor with the kids, play a game of Monopoly, whatever it is that lights you up, whatever it is that gives you that sense of, oh my God, I'm glad to be alive. It could be walking in the forest, But when you have that energy running through your body, when you include that energy of being alive and not existing in your life, that generates more energy. It generates the ideas and the inspirations, and it reignites the enthusiasm that we miss when we're tired, burnt out, bored, doing the same thing, self-dating. We get very lackluster and we become very flat. But when you start to allow yourself to do the things that really light you up, being with the horses, going skiing, whatever it is, it reactivates and reignites that energy. And for me, this is the sense of prosperity, that you choose more of what adds that energy to your world. So if you've got friends that light you up and you feel really creative and expanded after you've been with them, have more time with them, ring them up. Hey, let's get together on the weekend and have a beer or breakfast or a walk or whatever it is. But you start to make more prosperous choices based on you being aware of what it is that lights you up and nourishes your being.
And you could probably say the same for, maybe don't hang out with the people that make you feel heavy and like there's no energy in your universe.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's and without, this isn't judgment. It's looking at, okay, so who contributes to my world? Who do I feel light and expanded and, yes, I love my life. Who are those people? And then this is the whole thing about, the change going from lack into prosperity or self-dating into prosperity, that you start to look at the choices you're making as to, okay, is this, generating my life? Is this making me feel more alive? Is this a contribution to my world? Or am I saying yes because it's my mother? Am I saying yes because I feel obligated or I feel sorry for that person? And this again is where, be gentle with yourself as you're being honest with your choices as to, okay, yeah, I'm doing this out of obligation. If ever you say I have to or I've got to, you're coming from that place of obligation rather than, hey, I'm hanging out with my friend Alicia at the weekend. It's going to be so cool. There's a whole energy of contribution there.
And how much greater does everybody benefit when you're also lit up and choosing for you? What a great invitation.
Yeah. And just imagine, just for a little simple example, imagine when you're around the people that you feel obligated to be with or you feel heavy and you walk away feeling drained. Imagine that's a color. What color would that be for you? Would it be a dull color? Would it be a gray or a dark color? And then being around the people that you just laugh with and you can be yourself with and you have a good time with, what color would that be? Would that be a brighter color? Would it be a yellow? Would it be something that's really alive? So, as an analogy, okay, yeah, being around the people that just allow you to be you, that enjoy you, that embrace you, that you feel reinvigorated by spending time with them.
That's awesome. And you could even say that about doing the things that also light you up, like going for a hike in nature or taking a bath or whatever it is for you, whatever makes you feel lighter.
Yeah. And to begin with, a lot of people have become so accustomed to doing and, the obligation and just existing that they've almost disconnected from those things. They've almost forgotten the things that give them that sense of joy. So if you can tap into it, so what gives me joy today? What would make me happy today? What one thing can I do today that will expand my joy level, my joy factor, that will put a smile on my face? And that will help reconnect people to things that they may have forgotten about, that they've put to one side, they haven't had time to do.
Yeah, and too busy being adults. We need to go back to being children.
Exactly.
Awesome.
And this is where you were saying about out-creating. Out-creating is simply making a choice. Okay, what makes me happy? What lights me up? What makes me feel more alive than anything? Prosperity.
Prosperity, yes. I love this conversation. Viv, how can people find you if they want to know more about what you're up to? Yeah.
If they would like to know more about what I'm up to, they can go to www.vivadcock.com. That will have all my classes on there. So I'm going to be traveling to Europe this year to do some prosperity consciousness classes. I'm off to India in April to go and join some amazing people there to do a prosperity consciousness class there and a talk to the animals class. And they can find me online as well. So on Facebook but vivadcock.com is probably the easiest place.
And that is VIVADCOCK. Just in case somebody. .com. Yes, of course. And thank you so much, Viv. This was such a great conversation. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.